Vana Shugri from Hebrew University of Jerusalem, where she is now the clinical supervisor.
No, I'm not anymore.
So not now, but until very recently, until at least a couple of minutes ago. She was the clinical supervisor of the International Human Rights Clinic and an adjunct lecturer at the Faculty of Law.
I'm an adjunct lecturer and I'm not studying.
Okay, and she has extensive experience in human rights advocacy work in Israel. In 1999, she joined the Association of Civil Rights in Israel, where she worked on Palestinian issues and specifically on the rights of Palestinian Bedouins in unrecognized villages. India applied for recognition, and she actually managed to get something. She had some success there, which is which is very striking. Her work led to the recognition of the Derejat village and establishment of schools and health clinics in unrecognized villages, which is a huge success. She was the legal director for the Public Committee Against Torture in Israel, where she also worked on policy and legal matters, leading eventually to the establishment of a new unit at the Israeli Ministry of Justice for monitoring complaints of torture. Whether it's effective or not, maybe it's a matter for a different discussion, but it's a huge achievement. And yeah, so Vana will talk about international law in the work of Palestinian women cause lawyers in Israel.
Good afternoon, everyone. And Natalie talked about work in progress, so it's like really even before first initial draft. I started my PhD about 2 years ago. And I wanted to do some work in Islamic law. My interest was the way that Islamic law is interpreted in Israeli civil court system. But there aren't much, let's say that the decisions that are published together with really good, last year there was like so many articles and researches in the field that I thought that, well, Islamic law could wait and I'll do something else. So I just started 4 months ago a new PhD on Palestinian legal feminism and the work of Palestinian cause lawyers in Israel. So when Natalie approached me to speak about my personal, professional experience from the field, as I have told you earlier, I thought that it could be a good idea to maybe start by some very few theoretical framing of the research field, and then talk about my personal professional experience, because I haven't done the not only that I didn't do the interviews yet, but my research proposal wasn't submitted yet to be able to do the interviews and get the information from the field from bottom up. So my research will be committed to intersectionality as a synergy between academic inquiry and praxis that is designed to produce important new knowledge on the complexity of power and social injustices, and to broaden and deepen academic research by constant use of experience and struggles of marginalized groups, just like was done in by the Black feminism, feminists of colors, and third world global South feminism. So as you already know, I am a Palestinian woman. I am a citizen of Israel. For the last 17 years, I've been a full-time cause lawyer. And my cause lawyering didn't only, let's say, in my cause lawyering career, international law was very, very existing. It existed even when I worked for ACRI. At ACRI, my main legal tool and strategy was Israeli law, but even there, I'll let you know later, I was aware of all the things that Rina were just telling us about, that international law is crucial for not only the, first of all, for recognition of Palestinian rights in Israel, and then talk about successes. And by cause lawyering, I refer to lawyers who dedicate their legal skills to pursue moral, social, or political commitment beyond client services, definition in Scheingold and Sarat's 2004 book. In addition to being a cause lawyer, I was also an active member of the Palestinian Feminist, well, I am still an active member of the Palestinian feminist movement in Israel, and involved in all of the struggles for the promotion of our right to equality in personal status issues and also issues of domestic violence and sexual violence. My personal and professional identities position me as an outsider within the Israeli academia, who is conducting research on the role of, who is also conducting research on the outsiders within the Israeli cause lawyering profession and the Israeli feminist and human rights movements, because when I say outsider within, I relate to the term that was first coined by Patricia Hill Collins in 1986 to describe the skills developed by feminists of color through the exclusion from male-controlled race liberation movements and from white-controlled female liberation movements. The outsider within position was later reused by Spivak to describe the colonized subaltern woman that shuttle between meaning systems to intervene in power on behalf of the marginalized. Palestinian women in Israel face the combined power structure of settler colonial state oppression, as well as socio-patriarchal oppression, including the family that serves simultaneously as a source of support and oppression. Control policies negatively affected women's status and rights and increased Palestinian men's control over women. While the shared patriarchal nature of the state and the community's patriarchy produced powerful experiences of naturalized oppression, and Professor Nadira Shadoub-Kevorkian claims that the contradictory locations of Palestinian women activists and the competition among the different oppression regimes allow for leeway, agency, and impressive resisting capacities. And Saar joins her, Maria Saar joins her in this analysis, which means that, in fact, being the product of combined systems of oppression also gives you a way to use one against the other, and not only to be on the bottom of all of the three together, but also find the way to navigate and negotiate the different structures and kind of use one against the other and be wise. In light of that, I claim that Palestinian women's rights movements and the Palestinian women cause lawyers developed the use of international law and especially UN treaty bodies' monitoring mechanisms as a tool of resistance against their marginalization and silencing by all oppression and domination systems they face. As part of the revival of the Palestinian civil society organizations beginning of the 70s, Palestinian women either joined the existing organizations or established their own, either women or feminist organizations. And why do I use both terms? Because not all of the, well, many of the women organizations didn't self-recognize them, identify as feminists, at least in the beginning. Those who identify as feminists are or more radical, so Tufula, Women Against Violence, Kayan, Siwar, but there are many, many other organizations that mainly give, for example, the organizations in the Naqab, Ma'an, Sidri, all the organizations that give also are concentrate on empowering women, and they refrain from specifically use the word feminist in their identification. Beginning of the mid-90s, we witnessed major expansion, institutionalization, specialization, and professionalization of Palestinian civil society organizations in Israel, including the women and feminist organizations. And this actually enabled them to explore new strategies. So if until then the main strategies were social strategies and working on education and empowering in the field and kind of support, in June 1996, members who worked either in human rights, in HRA, the Arab Human Rights Organization, or in other groups that you could find, like students' organizations, organizations that deal with education, but they were all women. They found out that Israel's initial report to CEDAW just ignored them. The state's initial report to CEDAW didn't have even one thing to say about the status of Palestinian women in Israel. So they decided to act. And in June 1996, the Working Group on the Status of Palestinian Women was established. Rina joined just several months later, but in her personal capacity.
Why personal?
Well, we'll have time for it. No, we'll have time because I really want to say. Let me finish it and then you can say. Okay. Sorry. Adala was established 5 months later. So this is why she joined it in her personal capacity. The working group is still active. They submitted their first report in January 1997. It was an amazing report that actually very detailed, and they had really did everything that the state never done. Looked for statistics, found what is not there, and they found out actually that the fact that they don't exist in the state initial report actually mirrors the fact that they don't exist anywhere at the state interest. And the first report, what was really amazing about it is that it had the names, the private names of all the women who took part in writing it. And this is how I knew that Rina was part of it. The next report, this is the next report of 2005. Now it's like official, organized, only the groups, and Adala is part of the group since the second report. And you can't, I mean, you can't even look for, I mean, you can only find the name of the coordinator of it. But I was lucky enough that the first report had the names, and one of the names was a lawyer, Suhad Bshara. Suhad Bshara was then not only the only Palestinian woman lawyer in the group, but also she worked in her private office, and she represented the Committee for Educational Guidance for Arab Students. In 2001, Suhad joined Adala. Today, Adala, 4 out of 7 Adala lawyers are Palestinian women cause lawyers. All the women cause lawyers in ACRI, Palestinian women cause lawyers in ACRI, are women. The other woman cause lawyer in Palestinian organization in Israel, the Galilee Society, is also a woman. So today, if we search the cause lawyers at the Palestinian cause lawyers in the Israeli and the Palestinian civil society organizations, we find that the vast majority of them are women. 4 in Adala, 3 in Akri, one in the Galilee Society, one at the clinic in Haifa, two at the clinic in Hebrew University. Shdulat Nashim just now hired the first Palestinian cause lawyer for their organization. Itach Ma'aki has two women lawyers, Kayan has two, and Igud Siwa, the hotline for victims of sexual assault, also has one Palestinian woman lawyer. This was really interesting. It was interesting for me because until 1989, Palestinian lawyers, according to official records, Palestinian women lawyers in Israel, there were only 16. 16 women. Just to compare with Israeli Jewish, so the struggle to allow women access to the legal profession was a Zionist struggle. It was a struggle of the Zionist movement in 1930, led by a woman, Ginsburg, Ruth Ginsburg. Ginsburg was the Hebrew name that she had, and when Israel was established, she headed Vitzo. So she headed one of the main women organizations at the beginning of Israel. Israeli women were always part of the profession. They didn't actually have to fight men in order to join the legal profession, because it was part of the Zionist struggle against the mandate and against the Palestinians. So the history of entering women entering the legal profession in Israel doesn't have any gender struggle, and it was always legal. So how come that Palestinian women joined so recently? When we look the next decade, so until 1999, which was the year I became a lawyer, we had 140 women. First, before the working group on the status of Palestinian women citizens in Israel was established, another working group was established, the Working Group for Equality and Personal Status Issues for Palestinian Women, the group that also which I'm a member of until 3 months ago. And this group is the one that worked and succeeded to struggle to have Palestinian access the Israeli civil system of a family court system. So how come that Palestinian women entered the legal profession so late, and when they entered, they became they became the leading part of the cause lawyering scene, Palestinian civil cause lawyering scene in Israel. And within this cause lawyering scene in Israel, those women who work for Palestinian organizations, both civil rights or human rights organizations like Adala or feminist organizations, all use international law as their main reference. So it's not, do we integrate international law? There's no question about international law being the first tool, the first legal tool that Palestinian women cause lawyers use within the Palestinian, within the Palestinian civil society organizations is international law. Either they do it, as Rina explained, actually after your talk it's so easy, explicitly by approaching the treaty bodies and international legal arena, or by incorporating it into their legal work inside Israel. So what about the others? And here comes my personal experience. I don't have information about additional experiences, not because these don't exist, but just because I didn't research it yet. So my personal experience at Akri started in 1999. I was the first Palestinian legal intern at Akri. Yeah, where is Dana? She was my, she was one of my supervisors. At the same time, the first Palestinian woman who joined Adala, Nadir Al-Khula. It seems that we are the first cause lawyers, Palestinian generation cause lawyers in Israel. I wasn't aware of that until I did some oral history work. And I hope to convince my supervisors at Hebrew University and Berlin University that oral history will be crucial for this research. So when I first joined ACRI, it was because the only reason I studied law was that I was seeking justice. And in my terms, Israeli law is the master's tool. Audre Lorde, I mean, I didn't know her then. I know about her now. But I mean, no one could explain better what I felt about Israeli law. Israeli law for me was the law that took my family apart. Israeli law was the law that took lands from my family. The Israeli law was the law that made my mother stateless for 24 years. For me, this was the master tool. I wanted to fight Israeli law by learning this tool. At ACRI, it was not easy to convince back then. Today, I hope they're changing. Back then is 1999. To convince that international law should be integrated into the work, and not inside Israel, but outside of Israel. Although ACRI submitted shadow reports to the initial Israeli reports, but then after that they hesitated from approaching international treaty bodies until we convinced differently. And the Naqab area was the reason for that. I thought that without international law, nothing will work. When the homes are demolished and destroyed, Sandy, your report was one of my inspirations. You remember that report you wrote in 2000? This was one of my inspirations, that the law will not help us unless we change it. And the only way we can change it when you are marginalized is just going abroad and looking against it. I was too naive back then. I thought that if we talk enough, if they only know, it will change. Next year, next stage in my professional work was at ACRI. ACRI, sorry.
And the committee.
Amazing. Shit, it's like it's no.
Oh, it's the moderator calling you.
No, yeah, the silence and then WhatsApp. So that's, no, I'm not answering. Okay. Okay,
It's a good
moderate.
time to
So,
yeah,
yeah.
wrap up, yeah.
Okay, so no, I'll wrap it with the last one. So at Pikati, the way we could do work that changes something inside of Israel was the same tool that Irina now explained. Joint work, and I was the legal director, so I had, in my team I had 2 women, Palestinian women cause lawyers, 1 man and 1 Israeli. So all of us as a team, our work was going abroad and talking about accountability. We didn't talk about torture at all. We said, we look for accountability. And the decisions we managed to get back in CAT and Human Rights Committee were very successful, and not only there, it was CAT, the Human Rights Committee, Goldstone Report, and Turco. All these combined were then we worked with them within the Israeli legal system and led to the new unit. That at least it's independent. How effective, we'll see. But I mean, you always need to do one stage. The next stage, the last stage, and with that I conclude, was really fascinating when I got the opportunity to work for the International Human Rights Clinic at the Hebrew University. This was really like once in a lifetime experience, I think. I enjoyed every minute. And what was really amazing with it is that from this position, you are not the Palestinian cause lawyer. You're the international law clinic at the Hebrew University. And from that place, I lived together with the Minerva Center, the Hebrew University Minerva Center. I led part of their project. They had a project of working with academia, civil society, and the state. And I led the litigation part of it. And what I thought is that this is a great opportunity that Israeli feminist movement learn from the Palestinian feminist movement in Israel. I was aware of the fact that my personal affiliation and identity, together with hesitating from using international law and cleaning the dirty laundry abroad will be an issue. So the way of doing it was working together, well, exactly like Simon and Labia, was working together, was initiating a conference, just a panel. We had a panel discussion inside the conference. That was about how can you incorporate international law as part of the work of the feminist movement. It was an international human rights law, International Women's Day, 2016. And to that panel discussion, we invited a representative of the Ministry of Justice and also ultra-Orthodox organizations. And we had a very fruitful meeting. Following that meeting, I was approached by Nefcharot, asking me, if you know, Nefcharot is the organization. Sorry, well, back then they were a group, Facebook group, that were fighting for their voting rights. Ultra-Orthodox women who want to be elected as members of their own ultra-Orthodox parties. And they said, will you represent us? I said, sure. And this was like a joke, because like the group that I had in the students in the group that was in charge of international treaty bodies that worked earlier on the issue of CAT. Yeah, they had the Convention Against Torture until March 2016, and now it was stayed out, and it was 3 women, 1 Palestinian, 2 Jewish, 1 of them religious. And all of us worked together to help Nefcharot fight using international law and have their voice heard. When I left the clinic, also by accident, I don't know, it wasn't a requirement, yeah, but the lawyer who replaced me was also a Palestinian woman cause lawyer. And now she's continuing this work. And suddenly, we have more and more projects of learning of Israeli Jewish organizations, learning from the experience of Palestinian women movement and Palestinian women cause lawyers, how to use international law and incorporate it then again in their legal work in the cases brought before the High Court of Justice.